Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Wear Many Hats. We're here for episode 26 today. Another interesting one as well. We've got something very different for you. We're so good to you. We are so good to our listeners. We're going to be delving into the built environment today a little bit with somebody who is the managing director of RS Elite Consulting Limited. This individual is also a liveryman and committee member for the Worshipful Company of Constructors. She has over 20 years experience supporting the facilities management world in various incarnations. I'd love to welcome you all to Rianne Scott. Hello, Rianne.
Good evening.
How was the intro?
It was brilliant.
Did I get it right?
Perfect.
I got it right?
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. I usually get something wrong, like a name or something like that.
I was waiting for you to say Worshipful Company of Environmental Cleaners or something, but you didn't. You went Constructors. Well,
this is why I write things down now, Rianne. Yeah. This is why I write things down. Okay, should we get straight into it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Crack on, yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your career journey. Tell us a little bit about how your career started and how it's evolved over the last years.
Okay, so where do I start? Where I came into the kind of built environment FM world. So that kind of started probably 21 years ago when I was on holiday in Turkey, actually, with a best friend of mine at the time. Yeah.
I don't think anybody's career started in Turkey so far on the podcast.
Well, there you go.
Good.
So you like to be unique. I was on holiday in Turkey. I'm originally from Grimsby, and me and my best friend was on holiday.
Big up to Yorkshire, by the way. Let's put it out there. Yeah.
Lincolnshire, technically, but anyway.
But it's on the border.
Yeah.
I'm going to take
it's
it.
Northern.
I'm taking it's Northern, isn't it?
Northern, yeah.
It's past the Watford Gap.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
And so we met a couple of guys on holiday, and we ended up kind of getting together, and we ended up moving, both me and my friend, to live with moving away from Grimsby and moving down to Northamptonshire.
So, without being too personal, are we talking a holiday romance there?
Yeah,
really?
It was a bit of a holiday romance. Yeah,
okay.
And so we did, and then I ended up staying with the chap that I was with, and I went to work for an asbestos company.
Right.
So I'd left school, I'd gone to work in, I wanted to do kind of like an MVQ or something, an apprenticeship or something like that. I didn't want to kind of go to university, although.
You want to get straight into that work.
So I live with my nan and granddad because my mum passed when I was 14, and so I was kind of with my nan and granddad, and they were like, "Oh, you need to go to university," because that was the kind of given thing that needed to be done. But I was I just wanted to get straight on in there and just kind of like start earning my own money. It wasn't about the money necessarily. It was just about I wasn't very academic. So I just kind of wanted to be a bit more hands-on. I didn't want to sit in a classroom and do my A-levels and do degrees and things like that. So
education's not for everybody. I mean, education's very much round peg, round hole, isn't it? I think sometimes, and some people just aren't suited to it. I wasn't either. I was the same. I couldn't wait to leave, to be fair.
No, and it wasn't that I hated education or that I wasn't any good at it. I wasn't the A-star student, don't get me wrong, but it was very much that I just wanted to be a bit more hands-on. So I got one of the old-fashioned apprenticeships, MVQ, level 2, level 3.
Okay.
And went and worked for the council within their technical services department. So for you and I, that's like the street lights, the road linings, all of that type of things, the highways, all of that type of thing that was going on. And I got a fantastic kind of mentor, if you like, a lady that was working with me or that I was working for, that kind of took me under her wing and was like, right, you need to go and do your RSA level 1, level 2, do your typing exam, do your shorthand.
Oh, really?
Do all of these kind of like old-fashioned secretarial courses. Which I went and did.
And how old were you then, Rianne?
I would have been 16.
Wow.
So So
that's really young, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, that is.
So yeah,
Particularly
so I
that.
went and did those in the evening at school, like for college, and did for people that might remember, like T-line,
Yeah.
shorthand, and all of that type of thing. So I did that and learnt how to do all of the RSAs and things like that as well.
Do you still remember how to do all that out of interest?
I still touch type.
Yeah. Really?
I don't know that I would remember how to do the shorthand.
Yeah.
But I worked in progression of moving from technical highways departments. I went into work for social services.
Oh, wow.
And I worked within the child protection industry.
Wow.
So I used to take like minutes within the child protection cases and things like that.
I imagine that was tough, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite in depth, and it was difficult to kind of sit there in from a professional capacity to then obviously have to deal and listen to some of that type of stuff. So I was taking like verbatim notes and things like that, and then I
being very young listening to that as well. That must have been
so I probably would have been about 18 at that point, but still in the
still
scheme
young.
of things,
Yeah,
it's still
of course,
a young age. And then kind of just progressed my way through the council, really, and ended up becoming like kind of deputy PA for one of the heads of service within the childcare section.
Yeah.
And
so
then
would you say the council, working in the council from such a young age, give you quite a great education in terms of process and following process and doing things the right way and so on and so forth?
Yeah, 1,000%, because it was all very much policy, process, policy, procedures, process, whereas, and there was no kind of, we can kind of do it this way or kind of do it that way. It was very much, there was a process for this, and that's how you had to follow it. As down to what time you had your lunch. It was between 12 and 2. Yeah. How you filled your timesheets in, how you requested leave. So all of those kind of processes were there, and they were regimented. Right. And that was my way of like introduction to working life, I suppose.
So it gave you a really good grounding at a very young age.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that, but yeah, very much so, because I think now when you then go to some of the kind of other sides of when you go into corporate side, or especially SMEs, everybody has their own way of doing things. And, I didn't put that holiday form in. I didn't do that. I didn't. But when you're in the council, and when from an early age, it was very much like this was how. But I never knew any other way. I never knew any different. So for me,
but they're probably still skills that you use today that you don't realise you use.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, now you've just said that.
Because I say that about the Navy. You know, the Navy taught me a lot of stuff. I don't realise I'm using it. But I do. Like, I stand up straight, for example. I've got good posture. Big belly, but good posture. But I can't help but just, because I'm just naturally like that.
Or you just you find yourself correcting yourself in certain elements of your working day or everyday life, really, I suppose.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the next step in your career then, obviously, when you moved down to Hertfordshire and you started to get involved in asbestos.
Yeah, so 2003, I moved down to Northamptonshire and started working for an asbestos company as a admin manager, client liaison, that type of thing, and just kind of like progressed throughout different roles within the business. And then I met my now then husband, and we kind of worked together within the same business. Had 2 children, and in 2008 we decided that we would move away from that business, and we wanted to kind of set up by ourselves. And
that's brave.
Height of the recession, 2008.
Oh God, it was as well.
So
that took some stones, Rianne. How did you?
I'd like to say I was involved in that conversation. We'd had a conversation, and then he came home from work one day and said, "Oh, I've handed my notice in."
I had
Frank, my eldest, was 3 months old at the time. I was on maternity leave.
Right.
And they came over and handed my notice in. I was like, okay, what are we going to do? It was like, we'll be fine. I was like, okay, I trust you. And I did, and I do. And so there we were, and we were we set up our own asbestos company.
Yep.
We vowed that we would kind of make it a success. We weren't going after any of our existing clients. We vowed that we wanted to set it up as our own and make it our own. We had another person involved with us at the time, and we wanted to make it a success based on our own merits, not on the back of somebody else's client list.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, you wanted to do it yourself. You wanted to go out there and prove that.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to do. And if we fast forwarded kind of 15 years later, I mean, we were. My ex-husband was he was an expert in asbestos, but he'd never run his own business before. Right. I'd been in the council and then worked for asbestos for 6 years.
Understood process.
I was I was like, okay, well, we can make this work.
Right.
So we just went on from there and ended up building the company, doing the asbestos surveys, the removal, the training.
Yeah. And it is a very successful business, isn't it?
Yeah. So you fast forward 15 years. It's not been for one of kind of a few kind of nervous breakdowns, and everyone thinks, you set your own business up and it just goes like that, and you choose your own holidays and you do what you like when you want, and it's just not like that. And
27-hour days and
yeah, it is. I mean, we were like we were HR, we were IT, we were
you got to do it for tea lady,
accounts. We were doing the tea, we were doing the accounts, the marketing. It was everything. You wear, like this podcast, you wear many hats. Literally, you wear many hats.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that the podcast was set up for situations exactly like that.
Yeah.
To be fair, so obviously you started the business, and I imagine that was incredibly daunting. Do you remember your first customer?
Yes.
Where did that? I'm a salesman, Rianne. So where did that first customer come from?
That first customer came from just building the website on WordPress, spending 18 hours a day learning from a dummy's WordPress thing.
Really?
And us type it, or him kind of populating an enormous amount of content into WordPress as it was.
Yeah.
And it was a very big client. It was a council that found us on Google.
Yeah.
And I think back in the day, we needed something like £10,000 a month to like kind of break even and and pay, because we had staff working for us.
Of course. Yeah.
And things like that. And it came through the website, and it was a big. And they ended up being a client of ours for. Probably, I think they only moved the last couple of years ago, and that was only through like collaboration of them joining with another council and stuff. So it ended up going to a framework situation. But we had that client for 12 years.
I bet that felt really good.
It did, and it was nice, and it was nice to have that kind of those clients as being ours.
Yeah.
And they were very much we'd kind of like built those routes to market, if you like, and it was very much that we'd created those clients ourselves, and they're not off the back of anyone else or anybody that we knew. So that was our very first client was, like I say, was a big council, and they ended up being onwards for 12 years. So.
It's really interesting. And obviously asbestos, I mean, asbestos is dangerous. Let's make no bones about it. It's a dangerous thing. The compliance associated with it, the processes that you would have had to follow, and also, your teams on the ground would have to follow, extensive. It kills people. Let's be honest. That's the reality.
Yeah. Of it.
So what I'm trying to get to, I suppose, is there's quite a responsibility there in terms of, making sure the process is right, making sure that everything's done properly. And I'm guessing that yourself and your husband built all of that. You put all of that in place. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yeah, I mean, we had an amazing team with us throughout the process. We've had people that have come and that have gone, and who have supported us through our elements of the way on that journey. And I mean, ultimately, we were the driving force behind it. We had this kind of vision and this goal that we wanted to like kind of make the business successful and give people like kind of security and jobs. And we'd both worked in companies where they'd given you kind of false promises and empty hopes and things like that.
As we all have.
And we wanted to kind of like try and bring people in and invest in those people as well. So it wasn't just about growing the business from a company side or a client side. It was more about kind of the people that we had working for us and that kind of culture and things like that as well. And it was very important to us throughout that process.
Right, okay. So talk to us a little bit about where you are now. Obviously, you know, I think how long were you associated with? I mean, I know there's still an association, but it was 15 years.
15 years. So I've only recently kind of moved outside of Oracle Asbestos. So I'm still got a retainment there. So I still do have 21 years. It's probably most of my working life.
Oh, that's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
So most of my working life was in the asbestos industry. And then kind of July this year, I decided that I was going to kind of move on from that separation and what have you. And we ended up, it's all very amicable. And we're still working together, which is great.
Fantastic.
And we've got 2 boys together who are fantastic. And we still collaborate on lots of different kind of fronts with regards to the business. But my kind of focus kind of moved towards connections, lead generation, business development, the networking.
Which I know you're fantastic at. We'll touch on that.
I think I do with the odd event now and again, and might do a little bit on LinkedIn.
Yeah. We can all learn something from your networking skills, Rianne.
But yeah, so my path kind of took me on a bit of a different journey, and that was where I kind of saw my kind of strengths, and I kind of thought, oh well, should I go and work for somebody doing business development? And then actually, what I found was that I didn't want to be kind of tied to one kind of industry or one kind of sector. I wanted to kind of be able to connect you with them or him with her, or do you know what I mean? I didn't want to be kind of ring fenced to a certain kind of profession, industry or sector. It was like, okay, well, you're really good at that, they're really good at that, you should work together, but actually you'd be really good working together, but actually you're not going to get on, so actually you need to speak to that person. And that was where I was
you're quite good at that then?
Because if I go, oh yeah, you guys would be fantastic doing all the cleaning, security, all of that for those people, but if I know that you're going to have a massive personality clash with that person, I'm going to be like, no, that's not going to work.
See, that's a skill in itself,
so
isn't it?
I'm like, I'm not going to put you with them. I'm going to put you with them. If you're going to benefit, you're going to benefit. You two are not going to benefit. And that is where I've kind of seen my kind of business developing and thinking.
Your niche.
Yeah.
It's kind of where you're moving towards.
Yeah, and so I've set up RS Elite Consulting, which will be freelance business development. And then kind of lead generation. So there's different conversations to be had around different elements of what people think that looks like for them as an individual business. And then I'm doing like the events management and the networking. So the Yes We Can stuff that Derry Long has kind of really kind of taken me under his wing on doing. So doing the Yes We Can like MIPIM event, and then we've got the one at the end of September, which we're kind of raising money for PAX One, which is a fantastic children's charity.
Feel free to talk about that a little bit if you want to, Rianne.
So the Yes We Can kind of was formulated out of Yes We Can is in the French saying, which is something that Derry Long has run for the last kind of 12, 13 years, which was a pre-MIPIM event. Beginning of March each year, and he had like kind of 200-300 people plus. And then it was hugely successful, and I always looked up to Derry over the years, like through my. I've only been in the networking industry, if you like, for 5 years. So I'm a relatively newbie to any of this side of things. And
I
then,
mean, to be fair, that's where we met.
It was. Well, I think it was the NC networking.
It was, yeah.
With I think Lee.
Yes, with Lee,
Yeah.
A big shout out to Lee Lambert if you're listening.
Yeah, over at I think it was the Edge at Shoreditch.
It was. That was a nice pub as well, actually.
Yeah, at the upstairs.
We didn't drink anything though, listeners. We were very good.
Yeah,
and behaved ourselves.
Tea and coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Biscuits maybe if you were lucky.
There was no karaoke after. There's nothing like that going on.
No, definitely not. No Spotify. But so I got involved with that. Derry kind of reached out to me a year ago and just said, look, Rianne, I kind of need some new blood. I'm kind of pumping through this event, and would you be interested in kind of getting involved and a bit of support and stuff? So I did that on the Yes We Can pre-MIPIM event. And then we did then the UK Reef event in Leeds in May, which we had the support from those guys, which was like massively successful.
Right.
Again, I think we sold out at 300 people, and we're looking to kind of take over a bigger area for next year. So we're doing a late summer party on the 28th of September this year.
Okay.
Again, we've got sponsors for that. We're still looking for some more sponsors if people are interested. We've got tickets that are available for sale, and all of the ticket sales proceeds will go to PAX1, which is a very rare kind of like children's disease, and one that a personal friend of mine, Roy Parrish, is quite heavily involved in. There's loads of stuff on there on the website, which takes you through to that, and then they'll be able to donate directly or buy a ticket to the event and things like that as well. So
great for professional development, which I know we'll get onto that in a little minute, but also for a great cause, which is
hugely great cause, and it's children's charity at the end of the day, and I think there's something like 1 in 30 that are diagnosed with it in the UK or something like that. It's a really quite a new disease, and like I say, something that we've wanted to kind of support as.
No, fair enough. That's brilliant.
So we're doing that, and then there'll be other events kind of throughout the year that we'll look to do.
Okay. Brilliant. So touching on the networking, how do you think networking, especially for people that are looking to progress their career within facilities management or the built environment or anything like that, how do you think those kind of events can benefit them?
I think people need to perhaps take off this blinkered look. Whenever I mention networking to people, and I had a real life situation of this on Thursday with a potential client that I met with, that I sat and I said, well, why don't you come to some networking events with me? And he was like, no. I was like, why not? He was like, no, it's that clicky stuff in it where like people just like kind of meet up and then like chat, and it's a bit hoorah Henry, and it's a bit like awkward. And I was like, what networking events have you been to?
It does terrify some people though.
And it does. And this guy is like kind of a business owner, and he's had his own business for the last 12 years, and he's kind of a similar age to me. Yeah. So he's not like kind of old hat or not like really, really young. So he was just like, no, I don't, that doesn't interest me at all. I'm like, right, where do you get your new business from? And he was like, well, kind of repeat, or they've got one particular contract. And I was like, okay, so what if that one particular contract just disappears tomorrow?
Yes.
I mean, we've all heard of like some of the big people kind of going out there, and you just think it's not a dead set environment out there.
No.
And some of these clients that he was mentioning, I was like thinking, then just because they seem like a big beast, that it doesn't mean that they're secure and stable. And I said
there was a very big one not that long ago that we all know about. We won't mention.
No, and there's been 2 in literally 6 months. Yeah. And I just said, look, it's about kind of developing your network and your connections. And some people find it quite natural, and some people find it quite awkward, and some people think that networking is walk in a room, there's my business card. Do you need IT support? Do you need asbestos survey? Do you need cleaning services? No, okay, see you later. And it's so kind of short-sighted in that approach.
I think it's getting to know people. I think, and people that operate in different environments that could potentially help you at some point in the future. If they want your help, it's very. I've met some really interesting people.
Yeah, and you don't always meet people through networking that you're necessarily going to do business with.
Exactly.
But you might meet somebody through networking that you're going to get your next job off, or you might get a referral off down the line, or you might make a friendship out of, or whatever it might be. So I think it's about kind of, they're especially for people that are in a business development role, and that is this, and they're there because they need to go get work and get commission ultimately, if that's the kind of salary structure that they're on. But I think that people that go in with that approach are less likely to get work than people that are going to go in and build the relationships with those people. Yeah. And I think it's very much about consistency as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think you cannot, when I was Oracle, they would like, you been to that networking event, who did you meet? What work are you going to get from it? And it was like, no, it doesn't work like that. You don't walk into a room, meet somebody once.
No.
And then, there you go. Don't get me wrong.
There's a 50 grand order. See you later.
Sometimes it can work like that, but 75 to 80% of the time, that's not how it is. It's about developing the relationship, meeting people, and then learning about what they do, who they work with, who they need. And I think ultimately networking, it is a little bit kind of cliche, and there is some kind of networking organisations that say it, but it's givers gain.
Yeah.
If you kind of go out there, the more and you say, right, okay, you need to speak to such and such, or you need to do that, you're more likely to get something out of it than what clients can you introduce me to?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, especially when you run your own networking events, which I've kind of done in the past, is you kind of go in there and half the time you don't even tell people what you do. No. And then at the end of it, they go, so what? A lot of people know I do because of LinkedIn and things like that, but people will go, oh, but you've not told us what you do. And I'm like, oh, right, yeah, okay. And then you kind of give a business card because that comes as a secondary.
Yeah, I think it's quite a social thing, to be fair. I've met a lot of friends, the people that, you're a friend. Like a lot of people that are now friends through those kind of events. And, from a career perspective as well, especially across FM and other environments, it can open up opportunities if you meet the right person and you're wanting to move into a certain role. So there's lots of benefits to it.
100%.
But I do understand as well why it's scary for some people, because it's like what's that, speed dating? I think people have that view of it, don't they?
There is, and that was what somebody actually, the same person that I mentioned a moment ago, that's what they said. It was like speed dating. I was like, well, depends which events you go to, but
that's true.
There can be events like that, and that works for some people. Where some people are kind of like, I don't know, data driven, or they just need that kind of process. They go in the speed dating kind of thing. It's like, talk about work, move on, talk about work. Where you've got to kind of make general conversation with people. Yeah. People then would think, I don't know what to talk to them about. I don't know what am I going to say, or what am I going to do? And I went to a networking event in Manchester a few weeks ago, and I've never seen this happen before. And it was one that I'd been to that I'd never been to before.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of summer barbecue, so they put kind of a bit of a fun spin on it anyway.
Yeah.
But it was basically they had this app, and I can't remember what it was, but you kind of went on it and you like pressed the button, it spun a question, and it came up with a question. What was your favourite film growing up, or what was the first book they were like icebreaker questions.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it opened up a conversation that if me and you were stood there and we'd never met each other before, would I turn around to you, go, Matt, what's your favourite book?
That's very common.
You just wouldn't do it, would you? You'd be like, you kind of stood there and go, and then you'd look around the room and think, oh, who do I know? Who can I go and speak to? But it like you stood there and it made you engage in conversation, and then opened up a dialogue that perhaps you would never have.
It's quite clever, actually.
Yeah,
I quite like the idea of that.
Yeah,
I really do. I really do.
It was quite funny. It was, and then kind of the back conversations that came out of that was quite interesting. So, yeah, it
Learned
was
some
good.
interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, what's your favourite film? No, I don't need to know that. But yeah, there's loads of those type of things. So there's different networking for different people.
But it's those type of conversations that build relationships, isn't it?
100%, definitely.
Think, like because you want to get to know people, don't you? Because we all want that. I think that human connection, whether it's work, personal, whatever. That's kind of how we're geared, I suppose.
It's human nature, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's just that different people have different personality types. Some people find it harder than others. So I think that kind of scenario, especially for the people because I don't struggle with that. I'm a gobshite, Sorry, I swore. But for me, I don't struggle with it. I'll yap to anybody. But I know other people struggle with it. They find
that's what I mean, and that was why I kind of found it quite. Yeah, it was quite a unique kind of experience for me, but it was quite fun, and it was like, okay, that's quite a good way of kind of breaking the ice with people, and especially if you haven't got things to talk about or whatever you. So,
too right.
And it was good. But...
Okay, cool. All right, so going back to your asbestos days, especially for the listeners that are, starting their career in facilities management or the built environment, things like that, what tips or what things should people look out for in relation to asbestos when they're surveying a building, things like that. Let's get a little bit exciting with health and safety, shall we, Rianne? Yeah?
Can you, do those two words go together?
We'll make it exciting. We'll make it exciting.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, people still think that asbestos is an old man's kind of thing and that it's not relevant anymore and that there's, it was back in the day and that type of thing. The reality is that any building built before 2000 has potentially got, it has asbestos in it.
Well, it was the wonder material, wasn't it, for 60 years or something?
Thousands, thousands more than that. At the end of the day, it was used, and people just think that it's not. And unless you've demolished, removed, and disposed of every single building, built before 2000 across the UK, then yes, there is still a major asbestos problem.
Wow.
And there's lots of people out there advocating for kind of national registers. UCNA, which the guys over there are dealing with. Mavis Nye has been a massive advocate for the asbestos industry and the prevention of accidental exposure. There's so many advocates out there that are looking to kind of promote and ensure the safety of people moving forward, because I think there's such a lack of education because people do think that it's such an old hat type problem that it gets to the 11th hour on many occasions. The amount of times that I would get a phone call on a Friday afternoon from a main contractor, from an electrician, from a M&E contractor, from a fit-out company. We need an asbestos survey, doing a refurb survey. Okay, what are you doing? We're ripping out like 12-storey office building in central London. Okay, when do you start? Start on Monday. Hang on a minute. How have you got all the way through probably £50 million plus project? How have you managed to get from planning architect stage to starting on Monday of a £50 million project
without
anybody saying, actually, who's got the asbestos survey? Where's the asbestos register? And people just kind of fail to put that into some kind of checklist or some kind of process. And it happens, I'd say, daily. Wow. I would say more, and if you were to ask every other asbestos surveying company in the UK, how many calls a week do you get from somebody saying, I need an R&D survey, we're starting works tomorrow or Monday? I bet every single one of you could say I get one a week.
Wow. And how likely of those surveys would it be that you would find asbestos in?
If it's built before 2000?
100%.
not 100% because later on towards the kind of 90s, 99, you're going to have perhaps very little, and perhaps during the life cycle of that building, it's going to have been refurbed 10, 20 years ago, and the asbestos likely might have been removed, might have been kind of gutted years ago and then refitted, so all the asbestos has been removed. But you don't know. You don't know unless the survey has been completed whether it is still there or not. And that has always been a huge kind of bugbear, shock, unfounded belief that it's like, how can the construction industry go all the way through such a rigorous process of planning, architects, design, build, all the E026 for all of those forms, this form, that form, council, and all, how can it get all the way to that end process and literally just not be picked up? And it astounds me how that can still go on, and that still happens now. Yeah, and we're in like what? No. I
know. The thing is, I find that quite surprising, especially given how the health and safety executive view asbestos. I mean, probably oversharing a little bit, but I'm very conscious about it. My father died of asbestosis when he was 41.
Right. Was that through him working within the industry, or
no? He actually worked in Nigeria ripping out old canal boats, which is where they think he got it. Yeah. But it was blue asbestos, I believe, which is one of the worst ones, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's another kind of fallacy in the sense that people say, oh, well, it's white asbestos, it's not that.
Yeah, because there's brown, red, blue, there's different types.
Yeah, it's white, brown and blue, and then everything in between. But people kind of say, oh, well, if it's blue, it's worse than it is if it's white. But at the end of the day, one asbestos fibre can potentially kill you. So if you want to take the risk of whether you put your hand in a blue box or a white box, then it's irrelevant. It's it's higher risk, but it's in reality
it's all dangerous. It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that. If you're removing a garage roof off your garage in your nan's garden, or whether you're removing a load of cement out of a 20 hectare school. Do you know what I mean? The point is it's asbestos, and it can. So it's about, like I say, there's lots of like Yuckna and Mavis Nye and that, who are all kind of advocating for this kind of a national register. And I think there was a recent thing where people turned around and said, the government turned around and said, right, we're going to remove all of asbestos from public buildings in the next 40 years. And it's like, well, that's a big statement to make.
But it's because it was in everything. I mean, it was literally. For those that don't know, it was in the Brit line, in the cars, it was everywhere.
So people say to me, it's just in cement and in floor tiles. And I'm like, it's in over 5,000 building products. And if you were to remove, one of the statistics, and this is probably a little bit outdated now, but was that there was, because people say to me, there's not much of it about now, is there? And I went, there's 250 million tonnes of asbestos just in London. Yeah. Wow. And that's only if you demolish the buildings and you know about it, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that's probably quite an old statistic. That's probably quite outdated now. So
it's still wild to think about, though, Rianne.
Yeah, and I think there's 22,000 schools nationally that have got asbestos in them.
Well, and quite a few now with a concrete problem by the sounds of it. So I'm guessing that industry is now quite busy.
Well, that's going to dovetail, obviously, because of the concrete problem that they've got. Obviously, if anything's encased in asbestos, then you've got two elements of a problem there.
Yeah,
massively.
Recipe for disaster.
So it's all right. People going, you need to go in and do the survey on the concrete. Well, actually, it's encased in asbestos. So we need to do an asbestos survey before you do that. And it's that kind of knock-on effect, and it's just it'll be quite challenging. I think it'll just be another factor in those. Well, I think there'll be something else afterwards. I think, there was silica not so long ago, there was talks historically about, like with fiberglass and things, that you'll always have something which through kind of scientific testing and trials and things like that you're always going to get something that's
find out 20, 30 years later that it's actually killing us.
Exactly. But the monumental fact is that we know about asbestos. We've known about asbestos for hundreds of years, and it still just fathoms me on how little people take it seriously.
I know.
There are a lot of companies out there that do take it massively seriously, don't get me wrong.
Without doubt.
But there are still some big companies out there that just still think, and I think that is a lack of education.
Yeah.
I think that it's been massively diluted because you've got kind of like next gen people coming up through the ranks that I don't think have perhaps got they've got the textbook knowledge, but I don't think they've got the on-site or the kind of mentorship experience by learning from people that have been doing, and I don't just mean in the asbestos industry, I mean construction as a whole, and built environment as a whole, and FM, and all of the hard and soft set, all of those services. I think there is a potentiality of a massive dilution in the skill set because of a lot of textbook and online learning. Obviously COVID we had where people were kind of remote learning and just learning from kind of but we all know that if you go out and do a job, you're more likely to learn more about doing that job if you're going out with somebody that's done that job than you are if you just read a book and said...
It's that practical hands-on knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I think that we need to make sure that the kind of generations do get that kind of mentorship and get that on-site hands-on experience from people that have been there and done it, as opposed to just kind of learning through university or an educational platform.
Would you say that it's sort of seen as I don't know if it's the right terminology, but is it sometimes seen as a grudge purchase by certain parts of industry, do you think?
What, asbestos?
Asbestos surveys and getting it?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, and
just
the amount...
It's an added cost. What do we have to do that for?
The amount of times that I've heard, licence to print money for old rope, just so many different kind of sayings over the year where people go, oh yeah, it doesn't really matter, does it? I'll hold my breath while I'm taking the wall down, and just silly comments, and you just think, actually, if that's the approach that you want to, but then there's people out there that have been massively fined by it, and those type of people out there will be like, I won't be taking it.
I think if anybody watches somebody die from that, they would have it is horrific.
Yeah, I think if you've got an own personal experience from somebody that's kind of had mesothelioma or died of asbestosis or anything like that, and then, but if you look at it from a contractual perspective, if you look at it and say, well, hang on a minute, that by not doing this at the front end, you then end up delaying that project by 12 weeks. Yeah. I dread on a £50 million contract. I dread to think what it's
a big delay, big cost.
Big cost associated with that.
Yeah.
And who's paying the downtime on that, and then this is where you see the knock-on effect on labour and things like that, and things not being able to be done on time. And so I just think there still needs to be a massive shift in the industry with regards to it being taken for serious. And it's the same with your trades. I mean, everybody's job that foreseeably could bring them into contact with asbestos needs to legally have asbestos awareness training.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So your cleaners, your security guys, your electricians, everybody, your plumbers, your sparkies, your IT people, your HVAC people, all of these people are going, unless they're going into buildings that are built before 2000, after 2000.
They should be able to recognise the signs.
They need to have asbestos awareness training, because if they walk into a building and, I don't know, push a ceiling tile up or something like that because they need to break a cable through or something, and then they disturb it, you've got a big problem.
And
And I would I'd like to say that it was a lesson in eventuality, but it's not.
Right.
And it's not. Literally last week, I heard of an incident where there was where a load of electrical contractors had gone in, suspended ceiling, ripped it all down, put in a load of LED lighting and stuff, and no asbestos register was checked. Contaminated the school. The school had to be evacuated, and this goes on all the time.
Yeah,
and it's and I just don't. I just don't understand how, like I say, with all the policies, processes and everything, all the health and safety, safe contractor, construction line, Chas Gold, accurate, all of those.
How it still happens.
How people are still unable to kind of get all the way through that process and it still take place. It just doesn't, there's got to be something somewhere that's not.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a tick mark.
Thing is,
you get to a certain stage in a project and go, asbestos survey, and they go, yes or no.
Yeah. The thing is, human beings, we're funny, aren't we? We, the old collective memory, have you ever heard of that? The collective memory. So, if enough time passes, as a society, we forget things.
Yeah.
Like war, for example.
Yeah.
As
COVID.
COVID.
Yeah.
Things like that. As the trauma associated with it dwindles, we forget it, and then we become lax, and that's why history repeats itself. Basically, because
to remind you, because we're stupid.
We're all plonkers. Basically, that's what it is.
It's like the fire industry. Do you know what I mean? There's been like a massive kind of like transition on that.
Yeah.
And it's almost in then the concrete. It's like, hang on a minute, what's the next thing? There was fire, then the concrete, and there has been asbestos historically. So then there'll be something else, and then maybe asbestos again in 5 years' time because there'll be a massive breach
It's cyclical. Yeah, it's like there's something happens somewhere which has a knock-on effect, and then legislation.
Enough people shout about it as well, and enough people advocate for that cause, and it's important that
at least we do that. We do that. I mean,
we do that well as a nation, I think.
I think we do that quite well.
Yeah,
and we do try, don't we? But you're going to have things like that, I mean, we've got an old nation as well. Like a lot of the stuff that we've used. Yeah. They've been using for thousands of years. So there's always going to be something they find. I don't think there's asbestos in any castles, though, is there? Or is there? Am I wrong? Have you been to a castle?
I have been to a castle. I don't know. There must be.
Yeah.
Got to be
somewhere, aren't there?
We did a lighthouse recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Eastbourne, we did a lighthouse that had asbestos in it.
Wow.
We've had motor cars.
Cars.
So we've had clients where they've got old classic cars where they want to take them abroad to race or to sell or whatever, and they have to have asbestos surveys done on them, and then.
Yeah, because it's in the brake line and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, in the brake pads, yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was literally in everything.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't in a cup of tea back in the day.
Crayons, bin in crayons.
Yeah.
Dishcloths.
Well, I mean, look how mental
boards.
we are. We used to paint our babies' cribs with lead paint. I mean,
well, yeah. Cigarette filters as well. Yeah. Kent cigarettes.
Really?
Yeah. So Kent cigarettes in the 60s confessed that their cigarettes were safer to smoke because they had an asbestos filter.
Oh my God. That's double bubble, that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Guaranteed to give you cancer.
Clearly.
Oh,
So, yeah.
We're a funny species, aren't we? You wouldn't see the chimpanzees doing this, I'm telling you.
No. They'd smell it off a mile away.
They would do.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's absolutely great. So listen, let's move on to becoming a liveryman and committee member at the Worshipful Company of Constructors. How did that come about? It's a two-part question. How did that come about? And the second part of the question is, what does it entail?
Okay, so I got introduced to the London liveries, if you like, probably about, you lose track of time, don't you, because of COVID? Yeah. It's like how long? Probably about 3.5 years ago, something like that. So Steve Herndl was a member of the pattern makers,
right?
And he and another liveryman, Keith Glenister, invited me to some of the dinners and the events. And I just really enjoyed the tradition, the history, the formality of like the London liveries, and it just like I just loved it. So originally I looked to join the pattern makers, which is quite dovetailed with the FM industry. It's quite
I actually went to the pattern makers awards for young people in FM. With a couple of ex-colleagues.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Via Wayne Young, actually.
Wayne Young. Yeah. So I know Wayne. Yeah. So
big shout out to you, Wayne. He's coming on the show at some point.
Yeah. So Wayne was one of the very first events that I went to, actually, at the pattern makers. Wayne actually got, I think, young FM.
He did,
some of the year or whatever it was. Sorry, Wayne, I don't know what the award was, but that was one of my very first events that I went to, and I met Wayne there. And we got on famously, and we still continue to kind of work together now. So, and I just enjoyed that tradition, like I say, and the history of it. And so I looked to join the pattern makers, then kind of COVID hit, and that all kind of got put on the back burner. And then in the meantime, I then formed kind of friendships, relationships, networking connections with a couple of people that were in the Worshipful Company of Constructors.
Which is kind of your world as well.
So when I kind of looked at it, I was like, actually, probably the construction side of things formulates better with me than the FM industry. So I ended up becoming a freeman of the Worshipful Company of Constructors. That was in December 2020.
I remember the post on LinkedIn.
And then I went and did that, and then I went and did the Freeman of the City of London. So I went on to move on to that. So that sits outside the livery. You can have that without being part of a livery. But you can't become a liveryman of a company without having freedom of the City of London.
Now, am I right in saying that means that you can funnel your sheep through the City of London?
I can walk my sheep over the bridge.
Are you going to do it?
No, I ain't got any sheep.
Someone would lend you some shit. Someone has to do it at some point.
Yeah, I think it's at the end of September. It gets booked up really, really quickly. And the last 2 years, I've not been able to manage to organise myself fast enough to get on it. But it's supposed to be a really fantastic day. So I joined that, and I got quite heavily involved within the Worshipful Company and Constructors. Got onto a couple of the events and merchandise committee. Ended up being on like a media boost committee, which was very much kind of like about the getting new members in and things like that. So I then wanted to sit as a committee member, a head of committee, but you needed to become a liveryman. So I ended up kind of like within a year going straight from freeman to liveryman, which it's still it's an application process. You have to be proposed. It's not kind of a given. Still an interview. It's a very formal process and what have you. So I did that literally within 18 months. I went from kind of freeman of the city to liveryman. And then I sit on a couple of the committees. That's where I was before I came today. So I've been at the heads of committee meeting today. And I just love it. It's very inclusive. It's not, people think, it's like the Masons, or it's like a funny handshake, or it's not. It's nothing like that. And it's very much inclusive, very diverse.
It's designed to support different industries, isn't it?
There's scholarships. There's fellowship there. There is about kind of developing and bringing new members in, and like I mentioned earlier about kind of that skill set and that lack of skill set kind of coming up and through the ranks. You've got people that have been in the industry from 20 years to 50 years. Do you know what I mean? And they're all sharing those experiences.
Lots to learn from.
And you sit, and I sit and I listen. I mean, I've just been sat with the clerk earlier on today, and I was just talking to him, and I I'm just mesmerised because I'm just sitting there listening and just taking in stuff that he's saying, and then you find yourself asking questions and. Well, what did you do? And then you talk to people and they were like, oh, yeah, well, I did this. And you just come across people that you would just never have met at a normal networking event or anything like that. It's just an incredible group of people. They are amazing.
When I went to the dinner, I thought it was quintessentially British. Just because there's the pageantry associated with it and things like that, which I just thought was, that's us, that's our identity. I quite liked it.
Yeah, it is. Really cool. It is very British, but it's becoming more diverse. It's becoming more inclusive. And as a livery, that's where we want to kind of we push it. We want to. We're very much an advocate for women in construction. Yep. So we've got that side of things. At the end of the day, 13% of women in construction, jobs within construction are held by women. So it's still a massive kind of lack of representation within the industry. So
it's growing though, isn't it?
It is growing because it's growing because of groups like that, and because of UK Design and Build and people like Rianne Scott and Cara Massey and Michaela Wayne. All of those people are massive advocates for women in construction, and they are the driving force behind all of that. And they're pushing all of that, and it's some of it is kind of latched onto the liveries, and we're driving it either through the liveries or we're driving it through individual kind of groups or projects or what have you. So it's real. I've never been I might get shot for saying this, an advocate for women in things, because I think that people should just be recognised and be good for what it is that you do. Yeah. Regardless of sex, gender, race, ethnicity, whatever it might be. I just think that if you are the right person for that job and you work hard and you do that, then you should be recognised for it. Yeah. But if I could sit in the Worshipful Company of Constructors, or if I can sit on a judging panel of the Women in Construction on UK Design and Build, and basically inspire one of the female to take that role because she's seen something that group has done or I've said or whatever, then that's what I kind of get a buzz from. That's the right thing for me.
Good. That's good though, isn't it? I mean, I think as well, when you're in those positions, it's all about representation, isn't it? So if they see you there, they automatically think, well, if she's done it, then I can do it too.
Exactly. And I think that's for me. It's not like saying, oh, get rid of all the fuddy-duddy men and the women need to take over the world. That's not what it's about. It's about actually empowering people that probably feel like they weren't able to apply for that job or kind of stand for that committee position or whatever it might be because they were a woman of a certain age or
it gives them confidence, doesn't it?
Exactly. To say, well, actually, I could do that.
I could do that.
And that's more what for me why I've kind of become more involved on that side of things, not because I think I just think everybody should be given a job because of they are the right person for the job.
Yeah, exactly, right person for the job.
Yeah,
I completely agree. Okay, Rianne, tell us a little bit about you then. We'll move away from work. Tell us a little bit about what gives you the greatest satisfaction when you're out and about in your personal life or your professional life. What gets you going?
I think what I've done as a business, really, it's about connecting people. It's about spotting opportunities for other people, and people must say, really, but that's other people. But yeah, I do. I literally, if I'm sitting here talking to people, or I've been with a constructor this afternoon, sat and talking to a few people that I haven't spoken to for a while or at all. Yeah. And it's like, oh, actually, well, you'd be really good to speak to that person. And that's what I enjoy. It's about putting two kind of businesses together that I think that could do work together and kind of, so that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy the event side of things and the organisation of that. So that's always a good thing for me. So
and what about outside of work, or are you just never outside of work? Is it?
Yeah, what do I do else? How do I like walking. So I do a lot of walking, kind of like Yorkshire, Malvern, Matlock Bath, kind of bit northern, bit more northern, Yorkshire Dales. So I enjoy the walking. I've got a Labrador, golden Labrador that I take out for poochie walks. So he's lovely. And that apart from that, it is work, kids, and walking.
I like how you don't enjoy the kids, Rianne.
Yeah, well, 15 and 12, 2 boys.
Yeah, God, no.
Okay. I took it, we went to Turkey for a week and I came back alive and they came back alive, so it was all good.
That's always good.
So,
if everyone's back alive, you're in a good position.
Yeah, and there was we was all sharing literally kind of one room with one bedroom, so it was good for that amount of time.
Nobody's dead, thank God.
Yeah. So, but now I love my boys. They're fantastic. I'm massively into their sports and things. Certainly my eldest. So my weekends are taken up when I've got them pretty much football Saturday because my eldest is in an academy.
Really? Which one?
So he's in Kettering Academy.
Right, okay.
And he's like kind of been to Chelsea camp and things like that. So he's quite into his football and he's going on a scholarship next year when he finishes school.
Right.
So he's more into that. So my Saturdays are Kettering Academy football. Then Sunday, my youngest plays football, and then in the afternoon, Frank plays for a grassroots team as well. So
it's mum's taxi basically then.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, Mum, can you pick me up from here? Can you drop me here? Can you do this? So
I get the same stuff. That's
that's
my
what we do as parents, though, isn't it? It's why
work and drive the kids somewhere. Give them money as well.
And
then just when I speak
Mum, can you put £5 on my card?
Yeah. And then when I speak to her, I just get. That's about it.
Exactly. So, but no, that's pretty much. They're great. They love that side of things. And my youngest is massively into Lego and stuff, so he's the more creative one. So he's done like the Titanic and.
Has he really?
Yeah, he's building the Eiffel Tower at the moment. He's done the Colosseum. He's done the Millennium Falcon.
Bloody hell. So that's
and
not
he's
bad.
12. I mean, he did I think he did the Titanic when he was 10.
10?
Yeah, 9,500 pieces. I'd be bored after about 9 pieces.
Yeah, I was going to say, it must be patient.
They sit there for hours.
Really?
And he would literally have his phone, have something on the telly, and he would literally have the instruction manual there, and he would just be like, could just,
yeah.
So an incredible skill to have. So I think that's going to be something exciting for him.
To be fair, people get obsessed with Lego. There's a job there somewhere, isn't there? To be honest, he'll probably make millions building them in central London or something.
Yeah, I know exactly, and he'd enjoy doing it as well.
Exactly, yeah. So, do what you love.
Yeah, that's where I couldn't think of anything worse. Like I say, I get bored after putting 9 bits together. So
yeah, I'm the same. And to be fair, I just don't like Lego. They're horrible to stand on. To be fair, with no shoes on.
Yeah,
there's no pain quite like that. Is
no, exactly.
I bet that happens a lot in your house.
So no, because it's all confined to a dining room table. He just has it there, and he only opens one bag at a time to do the bits that he needs to do. So
right, okay,
he loves it.
Well, that brings us to the end of the podcast, Rianne. Thank you very much. Have you enjoyed it?
I have, yes. Been a new experience.
Have you found it interesting?
Yeah, I have,
yeah. It's been a very good episode. All right, guys. Well, that is the end of Wear Many Hats, episode 26. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you to my lovely guest Rianne for joining us today and teaching us lots of stuff about the built environment. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.